Good evening, and welcome back to Mystery Rift. I'm your host, David Paulides. Tonight, we're delving into a case that perfectly encapsulates the terrifying, baffling phenomena I've come to call missing 411. We're not talking about typical runaways or simple accidents here. We're talking about individuals who vanish from the face of the earth under circumstances that are frankly impossible to reconcile with conventional logic. And few cases are as perplexing or frustrating as the disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Picture this. It's May 14th, 2008. The middle of the night, deep in the desolate rural heart of Minnesota. 19-year-old Brandon Swanson has his car stuck in a ditch. He's on the phone with his parents. Contact is established. His location is known, or so everyone involved desperately believed at the time. He's not hurt, just inconvenienced. Everything about this initial scenario screams minor roadside delay. But what happens next is a horrifying slide into an unknown reality. A nightmare that has swallowed Brandon Swanson whole for over 15 years. A nightmare that begins with a simple phone call. Let's walk through the exact timeline of terror. Brandon was celebrating the end of his college year. He had been out with friends, traveling between the nearby towns of Lind and Canby. Critically, witnesses confirm he was clear-headed and lucid. Around 1:30 a.m., heading back to Marshall, his Chevy Lumina slips into a ditch along a long, lonely gravel road. He calls a few friends. First, no answer. No luck. At 1:54 a.m., he calls his parents, Annette and Brian. He tells them he's stuck somewhere between Marshall and Lind. They agree immediately to come and get their son. This is precisely where the missing 411 anomaly first announces its presence. The parents drive to the location Brandon gave them, but the area is empty. Brandon is nowhere to be seen. They call him back, trying the time-honored technique of flashing their headlights, assuming they've just missed each other in the darkness. Annette can actually hear her son flashing his lights, and he can hear hers. They are both reporting the same sensory input, yet they are physically miles apart. The spatial disconnect here is overwhelming. A geographic disorientation of this magnitude is a chilling, recurring signature in many of my cases. Brandon, frustrated and perhaps beginning to sense the wrongness of the situation, hangs up. Annette calls back, and he tells her he can see the town lights of Lind, another terrifying piece of misinformation, and he decides to abandon the vehicle and start walking. As the parents drive toward the new meeting spot, Brian stays on the phone with his son. For the next 47 minutes, Brian is the last human being to share a known reality with Brandon Swanson. Brandon tells his father he's taking a shortcut, cutting through some vast, dark fields. He's describing his surroundings, passing gravel roads, climbing over 2 fence lines, and hearing the unsettling sound of running water. Now, this is where the cell phone data adds a layer of absolute dread. We know definitively that Brandon was not near Lind. His final signal pings were near Porter, Minnesota, a staggering 25 miles away from his believed location. He was looking at the lights of Porter, or perhaps something even more unusual that mimicked the lights of a town. He was convinced, absolutely convinced, of a lie. How does a person capable and lucid just hours before misjudge their location by 25 miles on a straight road? Was his perception being actively altered? Was he seeing something that simply was not there? A phantom of the wild? Then, 47 minutes into the call, the final chilling moment occurs. Brian is listening as Brandon suddenly reacts. A sharp, panicked intake of breath, followed by a shout, "Oh shit," and the connection is violently severed. Brian later recounted that it sounded exactly as though his son had fallen hard or perhaps been violently intercepted. Annette and Brian immediately try to call back, but Brandon never answers. Here is the second, most crucial anomaly that dismantles all simple explanations. The phone did not immediately go to voicemail. Instead, it rang and rang for hours, all through the morning, until the battery finally failed sometime the next day. If he had fallen into the Yellow Medicine River, as authorities later theorized, his non-waterproof phone would have died instantly. The ringing phone suggests he either dropped it harmlessly upon being incapacitated, or something or someone took him, leaving the device behind as a cruel electronic witness. This detail challenges our physical reality. Did the phone land perfectly, untouched? Or is the preservation of the device merely a mocking afterthought by the intelligence that took him? The cell phone data also provided Brandon's final words, "Not another fence," right before he yelled, "Oh shit." This suggests a frantic, accelerating confrontation with the environment. This brings me directly to the potential supernatural element that plagues so many of these cases. Brandon was disoriented, isolated, and suddenly panicked. His last words were the reaction to an overwhelming, immediate threat. What if Brandon, navigating the intense darkness, stumbled upon what some call a natural rift, a dimensional seam that opens near certain energy points in the wilderness, especially where water is present, like the Yellow Medicine River and Mud Creek? We have documented similar cases like the stories from the High Sierras, where individuals seemingly step outside of consensus reality, an environment that often seems to hold an echo of something ancient, something that hunts in the blind spots of human perception. The search that followed was exhaustive, covering over 122 square miles. They found his car, no evidence of foul play at the vehicle, but they found absolutely no trace of Brandon, no glasses, no keys, and most damningly, no body. Tragically, the initial police response was dismissive. They insisted the parents wait, wasting the most critical hours of the investigation. This bureaucratic failure led directly to the creation of Brandon's Law. While Brandon's Law is a powerful, tangible legacy that protects others, it offers no explanation for his vanishing. The search dogs repeatedly alerted to human remains near Mud Creek, but searches yielded nothing. The theories, hypothermia, a hidden well, abduction, all fail when tested against the anomalies of the case. The geographic separation, the phone's delayed death, the utter lack of trace evidence. For me, the data is overwhelming. Brandon's clean, immediate vanishing act is terrifyingly consistent with being removed from the location by something with capabilities beyond our own. His final, desperate shout could have been the moment he realized he was no longer alone or no longer in our world. Perhaps the unseen force, the entity responsible for some of these missing 411 disappearances, finally revealed itself. No body, no belongings, no answers. Brandon Swanson walked into the dark, 25 miles from where he thought he was, and then, in a terrifying instant, he entered the cold, vast statistical void of missing 411. We may never know what happened in the split second after he shouted those final two words. But the clues, the extreme disorientation, the running phone, the utter lack of trace evidence, they all point to an extraordinary occurrence. A warning from the rift. I want to hear your thoughts on this one. Do you think Brandon fell victim to a natural accident? Or do the missing 411 patterns suggest something far more sinister and elusive was at play? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to explore more cases where people vanish without a trace, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Until next time, keep looking over your shoulder and stay vigilant in the wild. I'm David Paulides, and this has been Mystery Rift. Good night.